19. 19. The heavens declare of glory of God, and firmament shows his handiwork. Day unto day utters speech, and night unto night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, language where the voice is not heard. The line is gone out through all the earth, and the words to the end of the world. In them instead of that woman for the sun, which is like a brother coming out of his chamber, and when dressed like a strong man to run its race. Its ride is eased from one end of heaven and circuit to another end, and there is nothing hidden from its heat. The Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing in the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure and light in the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgment of the Lord are true, righteous, altogether more than desire than gold, yea, than much from God. So also the honey and honeycomb. More by them you serve in his one, and keep him there is great rewards. Who can understand his errors? Cleanse me from secret faults. Keep back his own presumptuous sins. Let them not have dominion over me. Then I shall be blameless, and I be ancient of great transgressions. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be accepted in his sight. O Lord, my strength and my redeemer. Hallelujah. It's been a while since we've done a psalm. Since I had the notes for Psalm 19. So Psalm 19, of course, is famous for being a psalm about the opening line, the heavens declare the glory of God, and firmament shows his handiwork. So this is related to several verses in the Bible, which talk about how God's glory is in the heavens, literally, like basically literally in the heavens. So a couple of verses that we can include are so Romans 1:20, for since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, be understood by things that are made, okay, even his eternal power. So obviously the invisible attributes, we're seeing some things that are in heaven and the things that are made. Another verse includes Deuteronomy 10:14, indeed heaven and the highest heavens belong to the Lord your God, also the earth with all that is in it. And one more, related to verse 1, Psalm 68:33, to him who rides on the heaven of heavens, which were of old. Indeed, he sends out his voice, a mighty voice. That's a very famous verse. The heavens declare the glory of God, and they really do. His attributes are seen, but you just have to have the eyes. You have to have the lenses of Christ to see it. That's really what it comes down to, as you know very well, that people do see. People see what they want to see, effectively. You have the predisposed bias. If you want to see nothing, if your eyes are closed, if you don't have an open mind, you're not going to see anything. If you have an open mind and you're willing to see what the evidence points to, you will see that. So you will see that in the heavens. If people look in the heavens, they look at the moon, the stars, and so forth, they have an open eyes, and they look to where the evidence points to, they will say that the heavens do declare the glory of God. And if you have the opposite, you will see what you want to see. You find what you're looking for, in other words. You know, like if you have like a bee looks for sweet things. It looks for the honey, you know. But if you find something else, another animal, you know, like a kingfish, it's looking for smaller fish. It finds what it's looking for. Okay, so we really have this bias here. So I think that's important. I like Psalm 19. We'll come back to that. I remember the first time I looked through a telescope. I bought this toy telescope. This is way more than 10 years ago now. And I bought this cheap toy telescope, and it was such a cheap telescope that it had like a I had to have your own table. There was no stand for it, tripod, and it would really shake. It wasn't stay still, and it didn't see far out. But still, even the first time I looked through that toy telescope, it's probably like 70 millimeter lens, it's very small. The moon was awesome to look at. It was awesome. You could see more detail, and it was just great. And I woke up my mom. I made her wake up. You got to see this. And in her own words, what she said, it feels like you can touch the moon. So that's an example of the heavens declaring the glory of God. And we'll maybe touch on a couple more examples. Verse 2 talks about day unto day are the speech, and night unto night reveals knowledge. So that really refers to like kind of like the seasons. So we do have the seasons on Earth because of the Earth tilt, like we mentioned. But this is important because, like it's written that you will have daylight, and then you have nighttime. God has done this. He's made the seasons. It's important for life. If you didn't have seasons, there would be death because you need these seasons. You need this to preserve life. So that's another example of the heavens declare of God. But you need sunrise and you need sunset, and that applies everywhere on the whole globe. Okay, there always is seasons, and it's not extreme seasons thanks to the God putting us the Earth tilt like that compared to other planets, for example. Verse 4, we find that that's also related to another Bible verse. So verse 4 in Psalm 19 is related to Romans 10:18. But I say, have they not heard? Yes, indeed, the sound has gone out to all the earth, and the words to the end of the world. So it's being repeated. Psalm 19 is in the book of Romans. And of course, that's referring to God Himself, the Word of God, God Himself. And we see that. So we see here verse 5. So verse 4 still. In them He set a tabernacle for the sun, okay, which is like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and just like a strong man to run its race. So the sun is it's such a great thing that it's like talking about like the beauty, kind of like the beauty, the bridegroom coming out of his chamber. This is showing the like kind of like the peak of like the bridegroom, and we see that the glory of God and kind of like the honor of the sun is a reflection of that, kind of related to the bridegroom. It's kind of like the peak. They say if your wife is your wife on your wedding day, it's like the peak. It kind of all goes downhill from there. So this is the beauty of the sun in that aspect. And we see here, and of course, God, Jesus Christ is known as the Son of Righteousness, S-U-N. It's written many times in like this midnight prayers. So I think Monday through Sali has a couple of quotes. You're familiar with those, I believe. And then we see here, verse 7. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. So the law of the Lord is the word of God, and this is what converts people. It's the word of God. You're not converted by having like a good social event. You're converted by being convicted by the word of God. Someone's not going to come to church really if he's not converted. It's from inside. It's from inside him to really be touched by the word of God. And that's how God touches people's heart, by the word of God, not so much by having a barbecue and so forth. It's really the word of God, which is much more powerful and sharper than a two-edged sword. All right. I think that's what we need to focus on, and that's how it leads to people converting. We need that to be the basis. And and of course, the people that convert, they ultimately become better people, ultimately become more moral people, because it's not just an intellectual conversion. It's your heart, it's the spirit being touched by the spirit in converting, because the word of God cleanses, because it's life breathed. I think we just want to stress on that again, that people convert by the word of God and are touched and the lives turn around only by that. Like I remember this story of a criminal who committed a murder. He did a robbery and committed murder, kind of like by accident. And he was going to be charged with first-degree murder and possibly get the death sentence, possibly, in America. And then he changed. No, I think he was going to be executed. He was. And he was going and he wasn't that far away from. He had like an execution date, but before that, his life turned around in prison. He converted to Christianity and just did a 180, touched by the word of God. His soul was converted, and people started campaigning for his life. And one of the people that campaigned for his life, defended him to not get the death penalty was Mother Teresa. Forgot the guy's name, but I can get it for you. It's in the book. So just an example. And then the author Lee Strobel was asking, so why'd you convert? What made you like? He pled guilty, by the way. He pled guilty to the crime, and the judge let him go in the end. He got off, and there's like, so what Lee Strobel was like, so what made you do that? Oh, Lee Strobel was like, it must have been like, so self help, or it must have been some good book, or and he goes, no, 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 no. It was the word of God. You know that. It's the word of God. God touched my heart. God touched my heart. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. Yeah, it's sure in the sense that it's reliable, it's verifiable, it's certain. You can read about how the manuscripts are just verified and nothing comes close to that. And I just think that when it says here, the making the wise is simple, it's good. I look at that and I go, that's good to have people have the simple faith. People have the simple faith, it's great. They don't need to overthink. They don't need to go into deep apologetics and so forth. It's great to have the simple faith. They are like the wise people in that sense. You know, professing to be wise, they became fools. People that think they know so much and go study so much, have more knowledge, they can be really fools. Okay? They can be really ignorant. The wise people are the ones that have simple faith in God. Okay. So yeah, that's important. So it shouldn't be. It's not a one size fits all for people with the faith, because people's testimony is powerful. Okay, someone that just converted, like we just mentioned earlier, his testimony is very powerful. He wasn't necessarily extremely knowledgeable. He wasn't like a deep philosopher with a PhD and a doctorate before his name. Okay, he had the nice simple faith. And we said here, the statutes of the Lord are right, rejoice in the heart, meaning it's like, morally absolute. Morally absolute, the commandments and the statutes and the ordinances of God, they're morally absolute. It is the standard of morality. There's no going around that. And that leads to joy, I think. That's just as the Lord rejoice in heart, okay, that leads to joy. Fulfilling God's moral standard. Aiming to strive to reach his moral standard. Okay, rather than going by man's standard, which is immoral. There's no absolute. Because then where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line in morality? Couple more verses quickly. We see here it talks about how we have obedience. In verse, I think it's 13. Keep exertion, let them not have the measure blemish, initiation of great transgression. Okay, so we see here that we have a moral, we want to obey the word of God. Okay, we don't want to fall into presumption sins, and we want, and in doing that, we receive the reward. Okay, we're blameless and innocent of great transgressions. Okay, and that's where we want to be, because we are the children of God. See here the honeycomb verse. Sweet also the honeycomb. Nothing is sweeter. Like, it's not just talking about honey, it's also the honeycomb, like the actual source. Okay, and look how sweet that is. Like, just before I left for retreat, the monastery, I was telling one of the boys, we're gonna buy this waffle machine so we can make waffles. Can go to the source, not just you buy the waffle cone and then you make the ice cream. Okay, which is sweet. It's great. I love waffles. I love ice cream cones. Okay, but if we can make it, we'll make the waffle. It'll go to the source, like the honeycomb source. It'll taste even better. Okay, and the word of God is sweeter than that. Still haven't made it yet, but I've got the machine. Okay. You see here presumption sins. KPI is servant also for presumption sins. This requires like kind of like discernment. We need discernment. So we can avoid kind of like the hidden sins. Hidden sins. And yeah, we just want to come back to the heavens declare the glory of God. There's one video I really wanted to share. I'll set it up for you now. That stands out about something I remember watching in I kind of like the heavens declare the glory of God. I'm not sure if you've ever seen it. It's based on the Apollo missions DVDs I bought a long time ago, but I have it here, and that's lovely. It's really lovely. We'll watch that together. Okay.
It's tiny out there. It's inconsequential. It was ironic that we had come to study the moon and was really discovering the Earth.
For all the people back on Earth, the crew of Apollo 8 has a message that we would like to send to you.
Just prior to Christmas Eve, we read from the first few verses of the book of Genesis.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep.
It wasn't just Borman, Anders, and Lovell. It was representative of mankind stepping away from their home planet for the first time.
And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good.
The most apprehensive moment I have ever spent in mission control was the disappearance of that vehicle around the moon on Apollo 8 for the 10th time to fire those rockets to come back to the Earth.
The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork, and glory be to God.